So far, pretty much everything we've talked about, pretty much everything we've shown has been client-side. But actually, forgeAS contains a server-side component, which we're just launching now, which we're calling forgeAS, the Forge application server. And Forge today, or Forge before today, basically you could write iOS apps, you could write Android apps, you could write web apps, and they connect up to the forgeAS infrastructure. We can break this out to legacy networks through SIP trunks, we can send SMSs through SMPP. It's all very cool, but it limits your use case and it limits your business logic to things that you can do on the client. As of today, we now have the forgeAS. It's another environment you can use Forge. It's actually Node.js. It's a Node.js application server. And there is a full Forge implementation for that, which means you can now write server-side logic. You can basically, it's a middleware platform. You can build your Forge middleware. And that's what we're using today to control the drone. For example, I saw somebody today talk about controlling IP cameras from other vendors in one of the tweets. You can do that using forgeAS because the forgeAS sits there as a platform allowing you to interoperate between different worlds. You can basically build a gateway using the forgeAS. So it's a Node.js based application server, but it's much more than just a client library for Node.js. We've actually provided a whole infrastructure around it. So a forgeAS app has a defined entry, exit, and error point. They're watchdogged, meaning that they're monitored, they're automatically restarted, stopped when they get caught in infinite loops. They have defined but customizable ways to output logs to make it very easy to take a forgeAS app and integrate it into your own logging system. And they can connect to the Forge network either as a single user, for example, drone 0, which I used in my example there, or they can connect to the network in a way where they capture all of the traffic for a set of Forge API keys, meaning you can use them as devices for doing recording, monitoring, conferencing, and a whole range of other applications. And you install it using NPM. So what are the use cases? Well, click to call is great. Clicking on a button, having it going through to someone to answer a call on a website, absolutely wonderful. But what happens if you want to have 5 customer service operators and you want to distribute the calls between them based on rules to do with time of day, who's available, who's not available? You could build all that logic into your client-side app, or you could keep your client-side app very, very simple so that it just makes a call to one destination, which happens to be a forgeAS, and have the forgeAS do all of that distribution and traffic management. You can create bots and autoresponders. Imagine you had a click-to-chat system, and for customer service, you could have a bot on the back end that answers the basic queries and then seamlessly hands off to a user, to a real human being when needed. You can implement things like conferencing and recording. And in fact, I mentioned earlier that we have conferencing coming as a new feature on the Forge network. And that has been implemented using the forgeAS, using our own application server platform. And you can also implement anything that requires server-side logic, protocol conversion, gatewaying, or anything else. And it's so easy to install because you just go to nodejs.org and install it. You get hold of the forgeAS tarball, which is on the same site now as all of the Forge Forge SDK code, and you just install that tarball using npm. npm install -g, the tarball will install it globally into your system. And to upgrade forgeAS, just install a new version on top of the old one. We've automated the creating of the app. So once you've installed forgeAS globally, you can just type forgeAS in it and the name of an app, and it will create a directory, and it will deploy into that directory under the node modules directory the forgeAS code and all of its dependencies. And it will also create 4 skeleton files for you to work with. forgeAS YAML, which is a basic configuration file. Most of the time you'll never need to change it. forgeapp.js, where you actually implement your code. forgelog.js, which again, most of the time you won't need to change it, but all of the log messages, all of the console.log output and everything else from that Node.js instance run as forgeAS is directed through the functions created in that file, meaning if you want to change this to output it into a different logging system, you can just do it in there. And of course the package.json to make it easier to manage the whole platform. And during development and testing, once you've written your app, once you've put the code into your forgeapp.js, you just go into the directory and you type forgeAS start, and it will run. To stop it, you hit Control-C. But if you want to go production with it, you can zip up that entire directory, because when you did forgeAS in it, it copied the forgeAS code and all of its dependencies into that structure. You can just zip up that entire directory and you can deploy it onto any Node.js deployment platform, like Amazon Elastic Beanstalk, for example. Within your forgeAS app, you fill in these 4 functions. I said it has defined entry and exit points. You have the init function, where you fill in the information about SDK configuration and all sorts of other things. We have the start function. When you start up the app, it will run the init function. That may well gather configuration from anywhere you want it to. It can open files, it can do anything else, and it will use that. You will then use that information to set up your app the way you want. Once that's finished, it will run the SDK. It will initiate the Forge SDK based on the information you've provided, and assuming the Forge SDK initiates correctly, it will then call the start function and pass that SDK object in. You can then write all of your code within that start function to do everything you want, all of your custom business logic. Should you shut it down, it will call the shutdown function, giving you the opportunity to cleanly close things down. So as an example, in my drone demo, in the shutdown function, it calls something to remove all the presence information from the drone. So when I shut down the application server that provides the drone control for the drone, it will actually go through the network and clean up the state, because it's no longer relevant because the application server is shutting down. And then there's a disconnected function in there which gets called should something get disconnected abruptly, a network error, something else. That function will get called, and that allows you to do local cleanup and anything else that you need. The app has a lifecycle. This is a standard application server type lifecycle. It starts up, it inits, creates the SDK client instance, starts the app, runs, but if there's any problems, it watchdogs it, it automatically restarts, all sorts of other things, all very useful stuff. And that basically is what the forgeAS is, which is a new part of our platform. And I wanted to run through it very quickly just to say all of the stuff that Boris has shown you today is about the client side, but many applications have business logic that need you to do things on servers, that need you to interact with other platforms. And we have a component for that, the forgeAS. It's available today. Opens up a wide variety of possibilities, one of which we're going to demo right now. That's you again. Oh. Call queuing. So I'll go and be the agent. Yeah. Agent.
Yeah. I haven't been able to make a picture yet for this demo. It's quite new. It's a basic call queuing demo. So basically, we have people working at a call center that are behind the queue that receive the incoming calls. And Peter has 2 websites where there's agents that log in. And then let's see the actual shop sites. So this is 2 sites where persons would, here's a click to call button, where you can push the click to call button and you set up a call. Those calls will end up in a queue, and if there's no agent available, you will be routed in a different way.
Boris is going to call me now.
Yeah.
And that comes in to this first agent login. You call me on the other one, Boris?
Switch it off. Second one. Yep.
That comes into the second agent login. So the point is that they're not calling to these separate agents. Each of these agents is logged in separately, and forgeAS is distributing the traffic across both of them.
So let's do a third one now.
So I will now, yeah.
Or, yeah.
Okay, Forrest's going to open a third one. There's only 2 agents.
Yeah.
So what happens when the third call comes in? We play a video. Blondie hanging on the telephone.
Yeah. So basically you can route and define your own
But it turns out
action.
a highly efficient agent has now finished dealing with the first call. So he's going to hang up and go back online. And all of a sudden, the agent that was on hold goes through. So this application works by using a combination of presence. Basically, the agent presence is published as presence, and the Forge application server subscribes to the presence for all of the agents.
Let me hang up.
When an agent's available, it will route the call through to them. When an agent's not available, it will put the calls onto a queue until an agent sets his presence to available. That notification comes into the Forge application server, and it then routes the call onto the available agent.
Is there an option to share your screen?
So screen share is possible today, because if you can get hold of a screen feed in Chrome or Firefox, which you can do by writing a chunk of code, you can feed that directly in to Forge, and at that point you can do screen sharing. We're actually very soon going to have a screen sharing API that's part of Forge, so instead of having to have dozens of lines of different code for Chrome and Firefox to set up the screen sharing, we'll have a single API to do it. But you can already do it today if you're prepared to go to the Google website and the Firefox website and download the examples and work them into Forge.
Yeah, that was the demo.
Yeah, so we wanted to do that demo because it's as fun and cool as it is playing with drones, and both Boris and me have the problem where our colleagues in our office that have thought for the last few weeks while we've been playing around with drones, we haven't actually been working. You can actually do real serious things with this technology. Call queuing is a very useful thing. You could build a call center, a virtual call center using this technology, and that's a useful thing.